And now we are live. The growth of the semiconductor industry in Egypt has witnessed a lot of milestones and highlights. And today I am very privileged to have Dr. Amr Hafez, one of the pioneers in the semiconductor industry in Egypt. He is Goodix Egypt General Manager. And Dr. Amr Hafez is a graduate of 1992 Electronics and Communications Engineering of Cairo University, and got his master's from Cairo University and then his PhD from Waterloo University in Canada, and had a career that was full of achievements, working in BlackBerry, MEMSCAP, PMC Sierra, Si-Ware, and then seated as the GM of Goodix Egypt currently. I'm very privileged to have you, Dr. Amr, and welcome to this tech leadership stories, where we are documenting the semiconductor industry evolution in Egypt by meeting its leaders and pioneers here in these episodes. Thanks for accepting this.
The privilege is mine. Thank you for having me. And I would like to commend you for this initiative, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to share with you some of my thoughts and experiences along this journey.
Thank you, Dr. Amr. And actually today, for those who are following us on LinkedIn and on YouTube, you can actually put any comments in the show, and actually it will appear, and we will actually share these comments with Dr. Amr Hafez, and we will be talking live together. So it's an interactive interview. Whenever you have something you want to comment, just put the comment and it will appear with Dr. Amr, and we will have this as a talk from the heart. And I would love, Dr. Amr, actually to ask you in the beginning just to brief your steps from coming back from Waterloo to Egypt, and what are the circumstances which brought you here to join MEMSCAP. And this, I believe, was your first milestone so before MEMSCAP and until you came here. I just wanted to be briefed as in your words. That would be a great place to start from.
Yeah. Sure. So as you said, I graduated in 1992, so I'm an old-timer. I went on to get my master's here from Cairo University, and then I was lucky to study at the University of Waterloo in RFIC engineering. At the time, that was a pretty hot domain, and to a large extent, it continues to be so, actually. I was also lucky to join BlackBerry. At the time, it was called Research in Motion, and the product itself was called BlackBerry. And I joined Research in Motion when it was still a fledgling, well, I wouldn't say fledgling, but a startup or a very young organization on the cusp of really changing the whole landscape with a pioneering product, and I joined them for 2 years, and that was pretty exciting. That was right at the point where I was finishing my PhD. I joined Research in Motion as it was experiencing a very big growth and really doing a pioneering product. So I worked there for 2 years building a GSM chipset, co-leading the team in building a GSM chipset. And then at that time, I made a decision, really. It was really a personal decision that was driven by personal reasons. That at that time, Research in Motion was doing pretty good. The field was doing very good, actually, and the opportunities were abound. But it was a personal decision and a desire to continue my career in Egypt here. That was really the motivation for it. So at that time, I came back here to Egypt, and I joined MEMSCAP. MEMSCAP, I think, was among the very, very first companies doing actually IC design, actually specifically RFIC design. It was an interesting initiative in order to, both the group here in Egypt as well as the company itself was trying sort of to break into that field without any prior products in that field. So that was an exciting period for me. And I was fortunate to work with really a pioneering group. Of course, honorable mention always goes to Dr. Hisham Haddara, who pioneered that, as well as a group of very distinguished individuals working at MEMSCAP at the time. So I was fortunate to work with them. So that was the first incident, or the one of two instances where I came back from Canada to Egypt. And as I said, it was a personal decision that had to do with many things, both family and cultural and so on. And I really wanted to sort of give it a try here.
Can I ask you
Sure.
more
I
about?
mean, please interrupt any time if I'm
Very,
going
because
on.
actually working on a hot product like BlackBerry in Decision Motion with a like a shrewd like production company with history in producing successful products, into a company that's like doesn't have any history and they don't have any kind of like experience or footprint. And having this move is really something critical, especially that if we look at this era, you were just like 8 to 9 years experience. So it seems like it's more like most of the people will choose, I would like to stay there and learn more and maybe advance in my career, understand more about the design process, rather than coming back into it's a very risky, like startup or a company that's found in Egypt. Like it's not that the ambience here or the ecosystem was not really supporting. So there should be some higher values, something like moved you to do this risk and come and join.
You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. And it's the for an RFIC designer, there's, as you say, there's a huge difference between the market in Egypt and in North America. In North America, it's a mature market, very diverse, with plenty of opportunities. And in Egypt, it was really a fledgling market, trying to carve for itself a place. So the risk was substantial. I have to say. However, as I said, I was driven by other things related to where I really want to call home and where I want to be. Now, I don't want to sort of stress this point too much. I think this is always a personal decision for everyone, and I don't think there's any right or wrong decision in that regard, or right or wrong inclination, but it happens to be that I was of the opinion and inclination that I really want to be here. Now, I have to say that I reversed this decision later on. So after spending 2 years here, and MEMSCAP was wrapping up really, I went back to Canada again for personal reasons, certain personal reasons where I felt that the support that I may be getting in Canada for my family would be more adequate than what can be achieved for us here in Egypt, and we needed some particular support and so on. So again, it was driven by personal reasons. And then later on, 2 years after that, the homesickness bug caught me again, and this time I decided, no, we're going to go back to Egypt. Look, I want to address this point because I have been asked about this many times, and I have had more than a few conversations with several people about this. Life in the West versus life in Egypt, there's pros and cons for each, and there are strong pros and cons here and there. and it ends up as a personal decision that may be influenced by your particular case, your particular family, your particular needs, as well as your particular aspirations and fears. And fears may resonate with one person more than others. And no place is without its own pros and cons. And one has to be vigilant whether you're here or there. One has to be asking themselves what your mission is about, and what you want to do and what you want to achieve. And as I said, it's a decision that is difficult, that is growing more difficult. Sometimes the distinction gets blurry. I myself, even though I claim and I believe that I had strong convictions each time, but still I did flip flop. Sometimes I did change, and so on. So it is a personal decision that one needs to carefully consider. However, again, this is again for personally for myself. I at the end of the day, I preferred to call Egypt home for the family and so on, for several reasons. But as I said, there's I can't say there's a right or wrong decision in that regard.
Yeah, thank you for that. And can you maybe share some highlights on MEMSCAP, and what are the success factors? And maybe, we know all that MEMSCAP was not successful in the commercial arm, but and this affected its continuity or sustainability in the market. But can you tell the highlights, the learning from MEMSCAP experience, like, because you joined it at an early stage, and you have your thoughts, your inputs. So can you maybe share with us some of that?
Okay, so for as far as I experienced it, MEMSCAP came at a time of high tech euphoria, and this was a time where the whole world was overly optimistic about the prospects of any company with a technology angle. And MEMSCAP had some of this, and they did have some interesting technology that they were bringing to the market, but they did benefit from an atmosphere of optimism that may have been not well regulated by proper diligence and so on. So that was, in my opinion, that was to a large extent the story of MEMSCAP. You have a technology, but the market is giving you the benefit of the doubt. They were able to raise a lot of money. They were able to spend pretty well and develop their technology. And I would have to acknowledge the role of Dr. Hisham Haddara, who was able to persuade them to invest in RFIC design and build this team in Egypt. And the team was very good, very distinguished individuals who were really driven by a sincere and overwhelming desire to really bring this industry to Egypt and get it off its feet and prove that we can produce high quality IP. So that was the story of MEMSCAP. Now, at some point in time, the market comes back to earth, and investors, you know what happened in the technology in the industry at that time, 2000 and so on, and the market comes down to earth, and each company has to account for its investments, for its spending, and what the technology is and where did it go and so on. And at that time, companies start to make tough decisions and start to scrutinize their businesses more. And at that time, MEMSCAP decided that this is not something to continue to invest in. This was an investment initiative trying to build an IP and then market it later. And if it's not selling now, then we have other things to put our money in, and let's focus on our areas of strength and so on. So this was this is the experience of MEMSCAP and MEMSCAP Egypt in particular. It was an initiative to try to build build IP and to grow the industry here in Egypt. And I think if by that goal and by that measure, there was a lot of success there, and I think we did build some interesting IP, but more importantly, a very good team that was really the nucleus of many things that came later. But on a commercial side, it was not in the core business of MEMSCAP, and eventually it did not survive the scrutiny that came with later on in the market.
Wow, that's a very fresh perspective. How you are articulating this, this positivity bias and maybe this kind of euphoria, and and how MEMSCAP Egypt achieved its objectives of producing IPs and forming the nucleus of a team that we see everywhere. Like they're leading the industry here, or maybe 40% of the industry is led by ex-MEMSCAP members. So in a way, 40-50% of the industry in Egypt, and everyone in the industry may have some a friction or relationship with somebody who was ex-MEMSCAP, so
Exactly.
Yeah. So MEMSCAP, without MEMSCAP, there would have not been all this success in the semiconductor market in Egypt, despite as a company it did not survive.
Yes, exactly.
So that's a very fresh perspective, and thank you for that. So after this diverse decision, you took it twice. Like you came back to Canada and then came back again in Si-Ware. So can you tell me what differed here? Like in taking this personal decision,
Yeah,
and what was your insights in moving from between these two worlds or two cultures with their pros and cons, this maturity here, something that started and taking the risk again with your family and everything, and coming back to Egypt. This is very like challenging. Like convincing again your family to come back again to home.
Yeah.
Or, Dad,
Yeah. I'm not sure how much lesson you can draw from this, just because many of it is really particular to personal reasons, but certain special needs that we as a family had, that sort of at one point, especially with the wrapping up of MEMSCAP, but it wasn't really about that. It's really about some special needs that were growing for my family, and we thought that they would be better met in Canada, really, given the societal support and facilities and things like that. And this is what prompted the decision to go back. And the intention was that we're going to go back for good, Canada, because this is where our needs of the family would be better met, really. So that came in 2004. So we went back to Canada. So I actually had multiple opportunities there, but we were focusing on Canada rather than the United States. And I had an opportunity in my previous company, had an opportunity in a startup in Ottawa, and then had an opportunity in PMC Sierra, which we decided to go to. But then 2 years after that, while things were good over there, while things were growing at PMC Sierra, again, as I said, the bug hit me again. It's really all about personal reasons. Look, living in the West has many pros, many good points, and usually a country like Canada, I think the United States, I suppose, as well. It's actually a warm country. It's actually welcoming, and you integrate pretty well, and things go quite well. And there's a degree of warmth and assimilation even, that help things move along. So it's very attractive. But sometimes you reflect on certain things and certain differences, and you some of us would sort of still miss certain things back home that have to do with culture, and sometimes they have to do with extended family as well. And this may resonate in a certain way, and may influence the decision. And this was the second coming. We it's As I said, things were going pretty well over there. We had good opportunities, but we reached a point where we thought that uh, calling Egypt home would be better overall, and more in tune with what we really wanted to achieve. But as I said, I don't think there's any right or wrong, and I hesitate to make any to give any advice in that regard, really, because it's a close call in my opinion, and a lot of it has to do with very personal things.
Okay. Thank you for that. Yani really, thank you for sharing this personal aspect of your life. And I believe that at 2006, Si-Ware was just formed, just a startup and the dream, for its founders. And having a product company in Egypt that's totally Egyptian, with Egyptian, entrepreneurs, techpreneurs, forming it is something like, it's it's like a huge risk, what kind of, it's not the right environment, not the right place to have it. So, and taking such a decision is really very tough, to join an early startup that's formed in Egypt and becoming one of its, like one of the founding team, or like one of the leaders, and something that's in a very ambiguous, it was one of a kind at this
Yeah,
So can you tell us how it went,
sure.
yeah.
Sure, but it also tells you the conviction that one had that made you the conviction that made you make this decision of coming back with still limited opportunities. But yeah, so Si-Ware was a really wonderful ride. Now, I wish I could claim that I was one of the founders. I was not, but I can claim that I joined in a fairly early stage. So I actually joined in very early 2007. I did miss the crucial first few years that the founders went through, but from there on, I was proud to be part of that team. Si-Ware was a very special place. So, so what would you like to hear about Si-Ware? There's so many things that to say, really.
So I believe it was a journey until 2019, before Goodix. You have witnessed lots of changes, challenges, it was a journey. And actually here in these episodes, we are sharing, the perspective that no one talks about, like the leadership challenges, dealing with the culture, with the team. So if you can put some milestones during, Si-Ware pre-Goodix era, because I believe that Goodix Egypt is already an acquisition that happened later on in 2019 from Goodix Global, that's in China. So before Goodix, there were lots of learnings, like 12 years. You've witnessed a transformation And I believe next week we will have this interview with Dr. Hisham Haddara. He will talk with us more from the founder's perspective, like, and this is something we need to share with our audience, that next week our guest will be Dr. Hisham Haddara, and this is something, like we will hear the 3 years that we missed. But during the 12 years that you witnessed, there is a lot, and I believe that it's best to be, like you, who is presenting what you learned, how it evolved until we reach this Goodix, milestone, which will be our next part of the
Yeah.
episode. So, yeah.
Well, I wouldn't want to miss Dr. Hisham's episode next week, inshallah. So, of course, this is, I think, is a much anticipated one. Yeah, Si-Ware is a real journey. So let me talk about it from my perspective. I have to give it to Dr. Hisham and to the founders for their ambition and belief in the team and in the ecosystem and in the team, really. So it's really. I'm just wondering, what title should you put on that? Like this 12-year journey, or the journey that is Si-Ware. What is the best title that describes it? And there's a few of them, but I would really I'm most moved by the conviction and the ambition of the founders, and it grew. It grew, and you could always see this ambition and aspiration of trying to build something sustainable and bigger. So it started with a design services business model, and then from there and continuously, you could feel that the leaders of Si-Ware are trying to grow it, and then it went through particular milestones, but design services was very important, and there's sort of the intermediate milestones within that, and each time you sign a new customer, this is an important milestone. Repeat business is an important milestone, and things like that. And then the desire really to build something big, that was always there from day one, that you could feel. One very important milestone was the investment and the perseverance in the MEMS domain, and that was sort of how that evolved into a very big part of Si-Ware, and it started gradually, where you have an interesting idea and you keep nurturing it, and it keeps growing. So this was sort of a gradual sort of event happening, and it grew progressively. Another very important milestone was when Si-Ware started to build its own products. So the way this happened is we worked with a certain customer in a certain field, and luckily they did not want this to be a design service business model, because they didn't have the funds for it right there and then, and they were pushing us to invest in it, and then we would own this IP and own this product. And again, it is the bias and the desire of the management, and Dr. Hisham in particular, to grow this company, that made them inclined to do this investment and make it work, and try to invest in it such that we own a certain IP and we own a certain product. And then they always had in mind that this company is going to be a product company, and it will evolve and it will grow and it will have recurring revenue, and we will break out from design service business model into a more rewarding and recurring business model. This was a very important milestone, and it resulted in several significant changes, both in the organization and in what we do, and in the finances of the company, and things like that. So this was a very important milestone. later on trying to grow this product further and further and go into, instead of just doing the design, doing the whole product and actually manufacturing it and testing it and so on. So those were very important milestones of Si-Ware. And then came another initiative as well in the field of timing, where we also wanted to do our own product, and this was very, very ambitious. And again, it speaks to the ambition and the boldness of the management of Si-Ware in that regard. So this was an important milestone. Of course, along the way there are successes and there are failures, and you have to deal with that. And this was part of the maturing process of Si-Ware. And this was very interesting. Uh, my overall experience in Si-Ware, the things that I took from Si-Ware the most, in addition to building a great team, really, and putting a lot of emphasis on character as well as technical skills, and motivating people, managing people, and bringing them together, and trying to maintain this motivation, and trying to maintain this sense of purpose. This of course is a whole front in Si-Ware that was very rewarding and very, very, very important, really, front from which one can derive so many lessons. But on the technical and business side, I was privileged to work in a company that has so much aspirations to grow. However, I would also say that you need to regulate that as well. You cannot invest in too many fronts at the same time, especially in an atmosphere or an ecosystem like Egypt, where raising funds is not at all easy. And funding new research and funding new tracks and funding new initiatives becomes very taxing. And sometimes like half of your business is funding the other half. This may put a lot of tax and on burden on the organization in many cases.
Yeah.
And this is a lesson learned, really, like regulating ambition and focusing, and understanding your strongest point, playing up on it as much as possible, and branching out of it only in a limited way. But if you go out and branch out too much, then you start to dilute your biggest strength, and the whole proposition becomes perhaps less attractive, and you are less able to grow that company. So I think this was also a lesson learned, at least from my perspective, to focus, and to it's good to be ambitious, but you still have to be realistic.
Okay, so is that maybe an explanation or a learning of what happened, for enrolling, the new brands like Pearl Semiconductors and maybe selling out Goodix? Is it one of the mitigation or the learnings that happened in Si-Ware, just not to manage many fronts and focus maybe to roll out brands with different business models and products afterwards? Is this one of the learnings, that we are seeing now, instead of having Si-Ware as one company doing everything, it's rolling out like sub companies or branches, or selling out or offering for acquisition some branches that are not in the core of the business,
Yeah, I would claim so. From my point of view, at one point, Si-Ware wanted to grow its IC business. We had a business that we were pretty strong in sensors, inertial sensors, and so on. We wanted to grow that and build that into a product
Mhm.
portfolio. And we wanted also to build the MEMS business, which is very interesting, has a lot of
Yeah.
potential, and so on. And I think as time goes by, you realize that you only have limited resources, whether you're talking about human resources, whether you're talking about financial resources, whether you're talking about mental focus, really, mental capacity. Yeah, I mean, it's you have a limited resource, and you want to focus. And I think this was a good exit for Si-Ware to capitalize on one success. And I believe that IC business was a very good success, really, for Si-Ware, a great success, and it was recognized. So and focus on the other side of business, and also for Si-Ware to come to the realization that you are competing in an extremely aggressive world. If you want to be a world player, if you want to build, say, the MEMS business on the international stage, you're facing a huge competition, and sometimes it's not smart that you do everything, and sometimes you want to draw upon the resources and talents all over the world that can really help you be all over the world and help you gain the exposure, the connections, as well as the expertise, really business expertise and so on, that would make you successful. And I think those two realizations came at the same time, really. And I think this influenced the way it went eventually. Now, someone can say here, well, you didn't really succeed in building this all Egyptian company that is of the likes of big names and so on. Maybe so, maybe so. But this does not in any way really lessen the achievement that was done. In fact, it is smart as you yourself mature and you yourself gain experience and see what's going on around you, and face the realities. It is the ultimate intelligence to revector and to recourse the ship to where it should be. Building Si-Ware right now, and I don't want to speak in their name, really, but Si-Ware focused on a high growth opportunity, high growth market, and they are building upon expertise internationally, making it truly an international company. Everybody knows where this technology originated. Everybody knows where this technology and engineering brain power still resides. And I think it is, and it really should be, an inspiration and a source of pride for everyone here in Egypt, that a company has grown to this stage while still having its core in Egypt, really. So I think by any measure, this has been a great success. And the fact that the other business unit in Si-Ware, the IC design, has been acquired in a larger company is also a great success. This does not lessen the success at all. And in order to compete, you sometimes need to be part of a bigger organization that is able, that has the business muscle to compete internationally. So and mergers and consolidation in the industry is a well known trend. So I think it has been a great success and inspiration. And I think Si-Ware has been a great source of learning for everybody here by looking at its successes and failures, and what worked and what didn't work and what was too much of a challenge. I think this should be a source of lessons for everyone.
Wow, this is يعني I love the perspective, the learning, and how you are sharing it. Really, thank you, Dr. Amr, for shedding that. And I believe during these 12 years, like there were, like this focus, this expansions, this growth in the IC, in the MEMS, and and actually having the products that Si-Ware is standing for is RFIC and MEMS products, which are really on the very high end of technology. Like it needs the most like sophisticated engineering when it comes to technology. And it's very strange that when this started in Egypt, they started on this far, like high tech, and rather than starting with like VLSI design, like like digital design services, like like verification of ICs. There are many easier entry points to start
Yeah.
at a service company from. And like the ambition, and what you're saying, the perseverance, and going for the RFIC and the MEMS like products, it's really like very inspiring. Like, and I would love to learn from you, like some insights on how you manage to resource teams that are great technical and fulfill this ambition. Like it's
That's a yeah, thank you for sort of bringing this up. But let me sort of clarify one thing here. First of all, before I go any further, we have really phenomenal digital team as well. So then there's really good things that happen there, and they are no less challenging. But
yeah.
actually, to address your point, I think this is our strong point. There's a certain distinction here. There's the business side and there's the technical side. And I think Egypt as a country, as a population, as a technical population, I mean, we shine where things are really difficult. And the most difficult and challenging part of the landscape, technically difficult, we shine and we do very well. And we have built a reputation, and the reputation is only growing, that Egyptians are really good, really well educated. The top crop is really good, really intelligent, and they are quite competitive, which creates its own problems, but they're quite competitive and they're really aspiring and they want to build bigger and bigger things. So, in fact, I would advise, if you want to go somewhere in the technical landscape, go for the most difficult part, and this is where the need is greatest, and you will get the benefit of the doubt. On the business side, this is where I would advise caution. You sell a design, you sell your brains, you sell a design service, you even sell an IP, people will welcome it and they'll pay for it. You want to you want to shoot higher, sell a product, watch out. There's lots of money that need to be to fund you, and you're diluting your strong point. Remember, your strong point is the design or IP. But if you put on top of that production and marketing and selling in China or selling in the United States or selling in Europe, when you are a small company, you do not have any other design wins. You don't have the business muscle. If you think you can learn it, it's not something that you learn. If you think you can hire for it, it's not something that you can hire for it. I always give this example. The CEO of Apple can raise the phone and talk to the biggest guy in the industry and actually ask them or actually command them to do something. If that same person, the CEO of Apple, leaves Apple and joins an Egyptian company, let's see how effective his phone calls will be. It's not something that you hire. Developing a business muscle is a very lengthy and costly road. So on the business side, I advise caution and advise caution of being too ambitious on that end. But technically, I think we're the best of the best, and we have the potential of doing that, and we should shoot for that. Your question was, how did you attract the talent for that? Actually, Egypt has quite a bit of talent there, and there's many people to thank for that. Many of them are pioneers of the industry, and many of them are working quietly in the universities. But we definitely owe them gratitude for the quality of engineers that are coming out. There was ups and downs. There was ups and downs in the interest of students in the field. And of course, there's the big gorilla in the room that nobody talks about a lot, which is the brain drain that is costing us a lot. But still, we do have a good pool of very, very talented individuals.
Wow. Well, actually, I will have to have a pause here because actually there are many comments that came in and I didn't share with you yet. So I will just share now some of them. Okay, and most of them are actually, maybe people that you will recognize. Like we have here Mr.
Ah,
Muhammad Shabawi Abdel Al. You are
yes,
meeting you here. Yeah.
yes. A dear friend and relative actually who lives in Canada. So I'd like to say hi, and we miss you a lot as well.
Yeah, so and there's also Chris Zhu,
Oh, hi, Chris.
yeah, from an ex-PMC colleague. It is so nice to see you again and how you flourished over the years.
I'm really really happy to see this comment. Chris was my manager actually at PMC Sierra, and I
Wow.
was privileged to work under him. He's a wonderful person. So thanks, Chris, for this comment, and nice to hear from you. And I hope we reconnect again.
Okay. And here, Mahmoud Ibrahim, and this is very interesting talk and a personal thank you for supervising our graduation project in 2013, the gas flow sensor. How is the
Yes,
talent pool in Egypt now on all levels, juniors to tech leads? So that's a question he's sending. Mhm.
nice to hear from you, Mahmoud. And again, an example of the distinguished talent that we have here in Egypt. The talent, I think, the, 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 the the top crop of the universities is still distinguished and still have very, very promising talent that we see. So this is really good. The problem that the biggest problem, in my opinion, is the brain drain. So uh, as as graduates leave university at the 2 year mark, 3 year mark, somewhere there, some of them, a sizable portion of them, would would go off to pursue careers elsewhere, whether temporarily or permanently. And this is really the biggest problem that the industry is facing, in my opinion. Again, your question is from junior to tech to technical. There's still a very good pool in Egypt throughout all levels, but it is this threshold, the 3 4 year 5 year uh, mark, where the pool shrinks because of this sort of exit route due to the brain drain. This is a concern. Of course, we would love to see expats come back and enrich the industry, but the outflux is not as big as the influx.
What can support? I saw many who came back like you, Dr. Amr, and there are many others around. Like I interviewed before Dr. Ahmed Ibrahim, and I know Muhammad Al Nozahi, and many I know that who came back from outside, and to support the influx. What would be your message? And I know you said there is no right or wrong here; it's very personal. But what would be your message for illustrating the cons for those who may consider coming back and are hesitant between both, like
Cons over here in Egypt?
the pros and cons? Yeah,
The pros and cons in Egypt?
yeah.
Well, the pros, in my opinion, are have to do with the personal issues of each person. It's really where you want to call home and where you want sort of to live your life and the kind of environment that you are in. And I think this is the biggest pro, really, and the biggest motivation for those who hold this conviction, or for those whom these things would resonate with the most. The cons are also known. I mean, from a career-wise, there's less. The industry is not as big, of course, and not as diverse as in North America, for example. So this is a known con, as well as other issues as well here in Egypt that have to do with opportunity and equal opportunity and things like that. But the one thing that I would say is the IC industry in Egypt is good, and it is attracting year over year. It is attracting more and more attention, and the demand is greater than the supply, really. So I think the opportunities. I think we are in a position where, as an industry, we can bring more players in. We can attract more players. There is interest. It is us fulfilling this that's the challenge. Having the pool that is big enough and diverse enough that meets those demand. That is the bigger challenge, really. But there is growing interest in Egypt, and Egypt is as an industry and as a community for IC design is proving itself pretty well on the international field. So what I want to say is this can be an oasis in Egypt, having a good industry, an industry that bears many similarities to any professional industry in North America, as you would expect to see. You're creating an oasis that sort of gives you fulfillment on the technical side, on the career side, and social side as well. This would be the what I would say, in order to sort of sway someone, or try to attract them to come back.
Well, that's a very good point. Or will we see at some point of time the expats coming to Egypt to fill this gap? Maybe filling these seats, if not Egyptians who are coming back, like the Egyptians like to outsource to go, like offshore and go for other opportunities outside Egypt. Will we see Egypt attracting maybe talents from the region to fill in this talent gap? Getting people from the surrounding countries, from being a place where the oasis in Egypt is attractive for others to come to Egypt and work here. Will this happen?
I see no reason why it should not.
Mm-hmm.
I see no reason, but it works both ways as well.
Yeah.
But no, I see no reason why it should not. The pandemic has, in my opinion, will have a lasting effect. I'm not saying that we'll work from home permanently or things like that, but the industry and people in general are more conducive to working remotely, collaborating remotely, and the idea of us attracting talent from neighboring countries, I think eventually may start to happen, and having arrangements where teams that straddle more than one country, that are working pretty efficiently together, will also happen as well.
Wow. So I
Yeah.
guess this may change a lot the talent map in Egypt, and maybe the offering and the value proposition of the employers, I guess.
Yes, it may have a very significant impact on the whole talent pool, and the whole not only our industry, actually, but in many industries this may happen, and things may have a very sort of maybe very interesting, again, it works both ways. So
Yeah.
so you may be
Mm.
as a team member, I may have more opportunities, but as an employer, I may have more opportunities as well in terms of the talent pool that I am tapping into.
Yeah.
So it's maybe an interesting development if this materializes, and I have a feeling that it may very well materialize in the future.
Yeah, and I guess Pearl Semiconductor. I had this interview with Engineer Ayman last maybe يعني before Ramadan directly, and we had this discussion that the extension of the Pearl Semiconductor team is in Malaysia already. And they already have an extension of the team that's like sort of an outsourced. It's a company that's formed in Egypt, founded in Egypt, and have an extension. And same for Si-Ware. I understand also that it has marketing arm in France and in Silicon Valley in America, and already it's what they call it's now an international company, and its critical mass is going outside Egypt. Like if we don't fulfill the sources and talents here, we will need actually to extend to other global or maybe global tenants. So it's
Yeah.
in a way, yeah. So it's a very interesting view. So thanks for bringing that. So if you are fulfilled with talking about Si-Ware, and maybe there is something you want to maybe mention before going to Goodix and this acquisition from a Chinese company to an Egyptian company and your journey towards the last 3 years, yeah, be my guest. So,
Uh, I think yeah, I've talked about Si-Ware enough, but I would just say that it has been a thrilling ride for me. I was privileged to be part of that, and very enriching experience for me on many fronts. And it had its ups and downs.
yeah. So the decision to actually uh, sell out or actually put the IC team for an acquisition by a Chinese company, I guess this has been a real discussion, like between leaders, and choosing you to be the leader of the company or the general manager in Goodix. This, I believe, it's a journey, and I believe it's not an overnight decision. And it's a major change. Like people who are like leaving the mother company and moving to another culture, another leadership. So I would love actually to what happened behind the scene, and telling the story, what's and you being there. So I'll just leave the mic to you, just to tell us how it happened. How it started, how it happened, and how the decisions, and the stages that you went through.
Yeah. So uh, I think the last several years of Si-Ware, there was a growing recognition that you have to reach a point where you focus on one track, and I think this was important. And I think this gradually started to grow on everyone, and this conviction gradually grew on everyone. So it's not like an overnight decision or something like that, but it grows upon you month after month, quarter after quarter, sometimes year after year, that okay, at some point we need to make a decision. We need to focus on this or that. There needs to be an exit from this or that, and leave your baby to grow somewhere else. And there has to be, it's not like it depends on how you do it, but you need to bring in more could be money or talent and so on to grow that. And there needs to be this sort of separation and focus. So this was a gradual process that happened, and there was the Goodix acquisition was not. There were preceding that was contemplation and things like that. So there was sort of a gradual transitioning into this mindset. When the opportunity of Goodix presented itself, I think there was to a fair degree already an established conviction that this may be a good opportunity to capitalize on a certain success and focus on another track. So this was really, in my opinion, this was sort of a natural phasing into this decision. Unlike what some may think, it was not like, okay, we're going about in our direction, focused, working and doing, and then all of a sudden somebody comes along and says, okay, we want to acquire you. So we had a long talk and a long walk and decided. I think we sort of transitioned into a state where a good exit, a good exit may be something that makes sense. And this was sort of the state of mind at that point. Of course, there's so many. It's not as simple as that. It's not like okay, we're on board. Not at all. There's so many things to look at. The parameters of this deal. Is this good for the team? Is this good for the company? Is this good for the industry? Is this providing continuity, and is this really growing? At the end of the day, we wanted to grow the industry. The founders of Si-Ware wanted to grow the industry, and they wouldn't want this to go to waste, and they want to see it growing and flourishing. So this was an important part of it, as well as so many other things as well in that regard. If you look from the point of view of employees, and this was shared with management as well, but employees may have or the team members may have maybe a higher degree of anxiety or something like that. So we are being acquired by this Chinese company. What's the culture like? How do things go? How are we going to interact? What is their commitment to the site? What is their commitment to Egypt? And why are they doing this? What are they looking after? What are they after in this deal? Is it Si-Ware wants to make money, sell this, and then we're on our own, or what's going on, and so on. So there's this degree of anxiety, and what about our aspiration to have a holy Egyptian company that. So there's so many of this that goes along. Of course, we as management, we are interested in the same things as well, except sometimes we have a certain perspective that already answers many of those questions, but you still have to address this with your team members. So this was an important part of it, bringing together the team members, aligning them, bringing them together, and relaying to them the relaying to them everything, the what the deal is about, what they are after, the subtleties that they may not see that actually provide a lot of reassurance, the conversations that we had with the company, bringing the company themselves to address the team members and give them reassurance, and so on, talking about policies, talking about things going on in the future. This gives you an idea of how this company is run, what is expected from you, what they are committing, and so on and so forth. So this was a long journey to reassure people, to give them confidence about this journey ahead of us. This was crucial, really, I think, and I think it was very important to many of the team members.
Yeah, and I believe that if you are saying so, like preparations, what kind of preparations did you take, like phasing out the ASIC team and putting it as, in the like for being acquired or something? So can you tell what exactly were the steps to phase it out? Like, what are the, like the hard steps and the soft steps before reaching this, like, and saying that this was a natural phasing out into the situation, like.
Okay, so just to clarify, I think it was a gradual
Mm,
phasing into this state of mind, but we didn't really put the team on the block or anything like that, or actively market that, not at all. So our
mm,
what we did at Si-Ware is we continued to work on our business model. Some of it was building products, some of it was selling actually
mm,
wafers and selling ICs as a product company. Some of it was design services, some of it was royalty based, and we kept at that. And we were keen to work with not only repeat customers, but new customers and bigger name customers. And this was the strategy really, which is do what you do as best as you can, and your reputation will grow and people will take notice and you will make money. The fact that a divestiture opportunity presented itself and there was a certain state of mind that was receptive to it does not mean that we were actually actively marketing the team at all. So I mean, to answer your question, the steps we took is just continue to do what you do as best as you can, and your reputation will be, your work will speak for you, and indeed it did. And many of the customers that we talked to along the years, they would sometime entertain the idea what happens if we develop our partnership into something bigger and something more committed and something and so on. So we did encounter similar situations of one sort or another, but we didn't really actively sort of seek this divestiture per se in an active way.
yeah, that's a really good point. And I believe internally there was some, continuing doing this. Did you maybe split the organization structure to have, like, more focus on the different functions that are maybe like did the ASIC function have its own like business unit or something, like its own business model, distinct from the rest of the company? Did you have something like that, or was it in the same, like, like you had to split it afterwards, like when the
No,
when
no,
the
no, no.
acquisition came? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
When the acquisition came, the split by and large was already done. Not
Okay.
not to sort of slight or underestimate the work that still needed to be done. And when you come down to details, you find that many things are intertwined, contrary to
Yeah.
what you thought. But the general scheme of things, absolutely, because of the different natures of the business units. One business unit, the ASIC business unit, not only different customers, different everything, but the business model is different. The MEMS guys really were building a product from scratch, all the way with layers and layers and layers of things there, different supply chains, different vendors, different customers, different proposition, different business models, plenty of engagement with customers for a long time, sometimes unpaid, unfunded, and until you get a certain success. It's really a very different mindset, whereas the ASIC business unit was comparatively mature. We sell designs, we sell IP, we sell limited products, and we know the value proposition. You want to work with us, you're going to pay this much, and we're going to deliver this. And it's a very, very different type of business. And the impact was far-reaching in terms of the team members that were separated, in terms of the way you do business and the way you execute projects, and the way your milestones, the process by which you work, and so on, was by and large different, really. So a lot of the separation, a lot of the tough stuff was already in place.
So it was, here talking about cultures, I just have to ask about something. Si-Ware, when we meet people from Si-Ware, we know they share a common culture. However, what you are saying here is that you created two silos, like two business models, like two clients. There were no intertwined processes, no intertwined business aspects, or or so in a way, besides having silos or two business units, you had a common culture. How did you do that as leaders? Like, how did you maintain a common culture while at the same time having two separate business units with two different business models, with two different clients and two different processes, without too much intertwining between them? So this is really interesting, like a leadership challenge, So
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's an interesting question. So the
Yeah.
commonalities that were there were things that were common. So, for example, HR was common. Culture, leadership. Dr. Hisham, at the end of the day, the culture, the values, the mission statement of the company, the values of the company, the general benefits and compensation mechanisms and things like that. All of those were common, and this sets the stage. The culture, as in the people culture, and the way we conduct ourselves was common, and the teams were very much alike in that regard, in terms of personal culture and conduct and things like that, very much alike. It is on the technical and business side that are different, and it does have an impact to some extent on the way you do things. The nature of the projects, for example, in ASIC, you're making money, you're counting dollars, and you want to deliver on time, and customer has requirements, and customer has certain milestones that they need to hit, and you have a certain kind of pressures, certain kind of parameters or constraints. Whereas in a more research oriented atmosphere or business model that is still trying out new breakthroughs, you may have more leeway for some other things. So things, I don't know, sometimes they may get delayed or not, and so on, because of the different type of business and how you are running this business. Maintaining the two cultures was a challenge, of course. To a large extent, it is addressed by the fact that you have two sets of teams, really, and the overlap was not big. At some point in time, there was an overlap between the ASIC and the MEMS, because the ASIC was doing the ICs for the MEMS and things like that. But that at a certain stage, there was a total separation of the teams, and this emphasizes the culture of each team or each business unit in a way that is more conducive to their own workings. So I think this was a main way of doing that. However, your question is very valid, because at the end of the day, you have this a single quality officer who wants to have a certain hand or a certain consistency across the organization. You have a certain there are some common things that do sometimes highlight some differences, and this becomes a challenge.
And so that's really, I believe, something to be taught, because how you did it was really eloquent, and actually it's observed in the market, the quality of the consistency of the culture between the two teams, despite both of them, as you are saying, have its own distinctive dynamics, processes, business model, clients, and they're already doing what's really serving their own business. So in a way, yani this needs to be like highlighted, a highlight in Si-Ware. So if you can actually share with us, moving into, the first day in Goodix, like, so how did this look like,
Uh, yeah, no, so the first day actually was to some extent more about Si-Ware, so the disengagement from Si-Ware.
Yeah.
So as I said,
Yes.
there's many things on everyone's minds, and how am I going to disengage, and what will happen, and what's the mechanism for that, and what contract will I sign, what happens here, what happens there, and so on and so forth. So this was really the big thing at the time. But of course, soon thereafter, you start to sort of, okay, look forward now, and what kind of organization are we transitioning into here? And this, of course, has been a hot issue for everyone, and everyone was sort of anxious as to see what kind of organization are we moving into. So this was an interesting experience. So yeah, so Goodix is a, I think it was a pretty good experience in the following. So Goodix is a $1 billion company. That's the revenue of Goodix. This size is very interesting, actually. It's not too small, and it's not too big. And this is this is an interesting size company for us. So when we started Goodix, we started working with both our colleagues in the United States, as well as our colleagues in China. So of course, in Si-Ware, we are used to working across internationally, and we had customers in the United States, and we had customers in China, and we had customers in Japan and Europe, and so on. So we are used to this. Going into Goodix, we found really an international culture, So there's definitely cultural differences that we encountered in Goodix. So if you compare Si-Ware to Goodix, there is a culture, a difference. I'm calling it culture. I'm not sure if this is the right name for it, but there is a clear or a difference that you can feel, at least from where I stand. But it is not because of Egyptian culture versus Chinese culture at all. In fact, Goodix is really an international company. Goodix has headquarters in China. It has several locations in China. It has a team in Japan. It has a team in Germany, several teams in Germany. It has more than one team in the United States. It has a team in Egypt, and it's really an international company. And you feel this the way we interact and the way we communicate is really no different from any international company. The biggest change, in my opinion, is the market that they are in. Goodix is in the consumer market. So you may know Goodix is a leader in touch ICs, in fingerprint ICs, and things that go right in the mobile phone, and in many other things as well. And they're working on so many other things as well. And the mobile phone is the prime, not the only, but the prime market of Goodix. And the biggest customers of Goodix are the phone makers. This is a cutthroat market. This is not a market that we encountered in Si-Ware, and not many in Egypt encounter this market. You may be even working in Egypt in a company that is related to this, but the pocket that you are working in is not really interfacing to that market. So the difference that I felt the most comes from the fact that they are working in a very challenging market, very fast paced, and this is the biggest change that I noticed. The nature of the market, not the Chinese culture versus Egyptian culture, really not at all, in my opinion, but it is the consumer market, cutthroat, very aggressive, compounded by the hunger of Chinese customers for growth, and growth is a very big part of their quest and of their mission, really, and they work very hard for that, and they push you for it. So I think this was the biggest thing. It is the nature of the work of Si-Ware. Si-Ware was more into high end products, even design services sometimes for consumer, but at a slower pace, and then being thrown in a market that is much more fast paced. And I think this is the main cultural difference that I experienced.
Wow. So, what does that demand for you from you as leadership? Like, like what's different here? Having this cutthroat, the market that's compounded for hunger, working with the product companies, like the consumer market and the mobile phones. So, what is different when you are orienting an engineer to Goodix than orienting them to before that Si-Ware, the ASIC team? So, what's different here?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It is something that you learn and you learn as you go, but it's a very valuable learning that I think we have developed in Goodix. Uh, Working in Si-Ware. So in Si-Ware we developed a certain way of working, and it is very admirable, and it gains the admiration of many people whom we work with internally in Goodix and elsewhere. So we do things in a certain way. When you are in Goodix, you sometimes have to pick up the speed. So for example, if I ask you to build a product that needs to be built in 2 months, and that's the proper way of doing it, that's the way it should be done, and there's a certain steps that you need to follow, and this comes before this, and then you test this, and then you do this, and even though you may try to speed things up, but there's a certain way of doing things, and there's a certain timeline that you need. uh, in the consumer market, the competition is really severe, and sometimes you need to change the way you do things, and you need to take more risks, and you need to fundamentally try to find ways to to advance in a faster way, and that becomes the reality now. Of course, it is it's a very fine line, because you need to do that. You need to work as fast as possible without sacrificing quality, because if you sacrifice quality, the whole building comes down. Really, you can't do that. So how can you maintain quality and maintain the quality of the work that you are doing, and ensure that it will meet the things that you need to meet, and at the same time find ways to get to market faster. And this was a learning experience. And this is sort of a change of culture to some extent. So I'll give you some examples without going into too much detail, but we have been working in a very challenging field that is deceivingly simple, or looks simple deceivingly, but it is anything but. And we want to catch up with competitors that are 10 years in the market, and we need to hit a certain window, and we need to recognize revenue at a certain time, and you are being pushed to do things in a faster way, and try to take some risks in terms of how you do things, in terms of how early you release things, and the type and the risk that you are willing to take before taking this to the customer, and things like that. So those things, it's different really in the consumer domain, and especially in China, I suppose as well. And you need to push yourself hard in order to meet those challenges, and to achieve something that you thought would have taken easily much longer than that. And there has been some interesting successes that we saw, and things that we didn't think would happen in this time frame, and they do happen actually at the end. So to answer your question, there's a little bit of a cultural change here in terms of the way we do things. You still want to maintain quality, but you want to find ways of speeding things up and doing things in a faster way and taking more risks. And that's what you have to do at all levels of the organization, and it propagates. It has to start from the top, and it has to propagate from one layer to the other, so that this new culture is happening, and people are emboldened to take some risks, some well thought of risks, not irrational, or but some prudent risk taking.
So to have this change and transformation during the last 3 years, what were the drills? Can you share some of them? As a leader, what did you have? What are the tough decisions? What are the callings? How did you implement this in the new gene of the culture you have in Goodix?
I would love to say that we did drills, and we sort of had a plan and we executed on it, but to be honest, it really came through the by experience, and by getting thrown in the mill, in the machine, and reacting to that. And I think we have to thank our colleagues in China, who are accustomed to this sort of way of doing business. They pushed hard for setting ambitious goals, and trying to meet those goals, and trying to work towards them. And we did take risks, and we are grateful that those risks, in many cases, turned out quite well, actually. But this was sort of a attitude that we responded to, and we had to go along with. There's one thing that I would like to stress here, because sometimes my words may give the impression that we sort of are overworking everyone and so on. I don't think this is true, and it should not be taken like that. So, as I said, we had a mission in our example. For example, we had a mission to sort of leapfrog 10 years worth of development in a year or two, and this was very challenging. And it was not without delays. We did have delays. We did have more than one instance where we come back and say, "Look, guys, we cannot do it in this time frame. This is taking more time than we thought. This happened, that happened. We need some more time here." And they were very understanding, and they were receptive to that and responsive to that, and they understood, and they changed plans, and so on. Sometimes the delay comes from their end, and we work closely. Actually, it's not like we work and deliver to them. It's like two teams really working, delivering to each other, and so on. So as I said, like any company in the world, they understand that delays happen, part of the business, and they ask us to do the best we can. They push themselves to do the best they can, but at the end of the day, if a delay happens, a delay happens. It doesn't mean that people need to be overworked. Of course, there are ups and downs, as in the nature of our industry. Sometimes some groups and sometimes everyone gets relied upon and given a great burden on to shoulder. But it's ups and downs, and some other times it's much more quiet, as is the nature of the business. And depending, sometimes actually team members may say, "Okay, guys, we we were looking forward to the next task. What's going on?" and so on. So there's ups and downs and so on. However, the general theme is the same. It is a theme of being on edge as a company, trying to seize the next opportunity, trying to seize it as fast as possible, as quickly as possible. Being very competitive comes from the Chinese market, comes particularly from the consumer market, as opposed to a high-end market where developments take a longer time, and so on.
Oh, so that's amazing. So, um, what can you talk? What can you say now about Goodix? Like if you want to have like a brief introduction to Goodix Egypt as you understand now, especially that I can see that it's that having these 3 years, you are already in a growth. Goodix Egypt is growing and it's attracting new talents, and it's already being well established as a branch of Goodix in Egypt. Like it's one of the offices now that's growing here. So what can you tell? How can you present this? We're being a general manager and overseeing this as a leader. How can you present this to everyone?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity for this, because this point in particular I would like to elaborate on. When we started in Goodix, I think I sense, it's just sort of a sense that there was sort of a feeling of, let's see what those guys can provide, and that's natural. I wouldn't say skepticism. I think people were already sold on our capability, and this is why the acquisition happened. But still, there's certain residual feeling of, let's see how those guys perform and what they are capable of in a short period of time. In a very short period of time, we have proven ourselves greatly, and I really have to thank the whole team here for that. We have proven ourselves greatly inside Goodix, and really, Goodix Egypt is very well regarded inside Goodix in terms of what we are capable of and in terms of how we do things. We have actually looked upon with great admiration as to how we work. So we were engaged, and we still are engaged in a very complex chip. And we are very proud that this chip worked from first silicon, and I mean from scratch, with no preceding sort of tools or silicon to help you grow this complex system. And we did this through a very meticulous process that started in Si-Ware and got refined as we go, in order to ensure that we can produce a very complex system from right off the bat, from the first silicon, and meet all the layers and layers of complexity in it, and meet both performance and functionality. And this was looked upon with great admiration. Contrast that with other groups, perhaps, that may take 3, 4, 5 silicons in order to reach a certain stage, and people notice, and people took notice, not only to the capabilities of the team, but in the way the team operates, and the way the team verifies and builds the whole system, and so on. So it's really a shining point. And now the whole bias is to grow the team in all domains. We're proud that we added embedded software to our site here, which was not there when we started. and they're doing a excellent job as well, helping our colleagues over there and so on. So there's actually a great desire for growth that we ourselves are the bottleneck in terms of fulfilling and in terms of meeting this demand. And we are keen to grow without any sacrifice of the technical excellence that we have. You see, when I said Goodix is the right size, I really feel that. So Goodix is big enough to be a big player in the consumer market, and to have to have customers of the likes of the biggest names of the mobile makers and so on. So they're big enough to be an admirable and a big player in the consumer market. The customers that we work with directly, and I mean personally directly, we work with are big names in this consumer market. And this is another learning that we never got before, how this works and how they treat you and how the negotiations happen and how the power play happens there and so on. So it's big enough to be a big player there, yet it is small enough for us to grow. If we were part of a $10 billion company rather than a $1 billion company, we may be sort of buried in a certain pocket of the organization, or we may be under the sort of the guidance and somebody else holding our hands as we go. But the size of Goodix is allowing us to play an important role. We are sort of when we develop a certain chip, we are the owners of that system. We are the creators of that system. We start from a clean slate. We build the system. We make the decisions, and we sort of control our destiny in that regard. And we create systems. We create systems from scratch. And it is the size of Goodix that allows us to play a bigger role, to play a prominent role, and even to play roles in strategy of the company as well, and directions of the company and where we want to be and so on. So we are lucky to be in a company of the right size that is conducive to our growth, to our autonomy, and at the same time that thrusts us right in the heart of the most challenging market out there, the consumer market.
Wow, that's profound. Having this opportunity to be part of a bigger company that's really in the size that allows you to be part of its strategy. And it's a product company working in the consumer market with big names. Can you mention some of the names that may be inspiring to some?
Oh yeah, there's plenty right on the website of Goodix. We sell to Huawei, we sell to Oppo, we sell to Xiaomi, we sell to Dell, we sell to many of those names. We sell there. We sell to Samsung as well. Many of those. We work in the mobile phones and touch and fingerprint. We have other divisions in camera. We have multimedia solutions. We're sort of trying to quickly think what pieces of information are yet confidential and what are not. So I'm trying to process that as I speak. But so I want to be a little bit careful. But we work with the biggest names out there, and this is interesting. See, this was an eye opener for me. I came from Si-Ware. Si-Ware was very interesting, but Si-Ware is a very small company. Now we did encounter large names. We sat with Panasonic and Murata and people like that, but it's really very different. There's a difference between talking to big names as a novelty, as an interesting company out of Egypt, and we be interested in what you do, and they would encourage you, and they would actually engage with you in some limited projects. versus selling into the consumer market. It's very different. You go to one of those big names, they know you, you know them, they know that they already source some chips in their mobile phones, and you go right to the heart of the group that is working in whatever you're working on, and you sit with the right people directly, and you start to talk to the decision makers right away. You get sort of a hotline to those decision makers. Your engineers may be talking to their engineers directly, and they are the ones, they tell you this is going to go in this mobile phone, this model at this date, and this, and you know where your product is going to go at the end of the day, and you know it for sure, and you know which model that holds your products and so on. It's very interesting, and the way the power play goes, and the way they talk to each other, and things like that, and it's a very interesting dynamic. It's lots of power play involved, and things like that, and so it's very interesting, but it's very different from what you encounter as a small company trying to attract the attention of bigger companies.
So, what could you maybe advise those who maybe want to join maybe Goodix, or maybe be part of its story in the next, few years or something?
We always welcome talent, and that we definitely welcome distinguished designers from the whole spectrum: analog, digital, embedded software, and so on, at all levels. And if you come to Goodix, you will be part of a team that builds its own systems from scratch, that decides upon the whole system, that works in so many layers of the development. So right from a clean slate, when you select the technology that you're going to use, you control this decision to a large extent. Of course, there's many other stakeholders, but selecting the technology that you will use, selecting what kind of system you will build, and what kind of chip that will go there, how you will build this, and then taking this to verification before you tape out, until you yourself reach the confidence level that you are confident with, and then taking this to validation, and then taking this to customer, and then taking this to certification, and then dealing with production along with your colleagues in China who will be producing this and doing mass production on this. And you are intimately involved in every step of the way, all the way to the customer, and you're getting feedback from the customer. And I mean real feedback of the engineer who works in this company or that company, who will decide if this is going to go on the phone or not. And they tell you what the problem is, and you know what the problem is, and you fix that, and you interact with this person until you gain their trust. And then you see your product in the market. We encounter the entire sort of flow and all levels. We don't do, for example, just a design and then leave it for someone else who matures it into a product. We don't do just a research project, for example. We don't do porting of this or that, but we build the whole system, and build the whole thing, and you will be exposed to all of this, and you will be a much more sophisticated individual. And on top of that, I would say as well, the thing that distinguishes us, I would dare to say, is our methodology in design and verification. It is something that is really admirable, really catches the attention of teams all over, and is proven to yield things that first silicon successes that would not otherwise would have been possible at all. It's really a unique process that we have that gives a huge amount of value to anyone involved in this. So I dare to say, and I am proud to say that I think we provide a great deal of learning and sophistication in terms of what we do, and we are aided in that by the nature of the company that we work in and the right size of the company that we work in.
Wow. That was a dream for me, when I graduated, before working in telecom and in IT industry, and then moving towards consultancy and working with leaders to enhance their teams and their culture, and working with their leadership development and the environments of the and transformations of companies. Before that, my first dream was actually being part of a team like yours, like working in a product and seeing my work in a TV and a consumer product in the end, and the first job for me was actually in Bahgat, Goldie, R&D. As an IC designer there, and
Mhm.
I believe it's amazing, when you see that this device, I have this kind of contribution. This chip that's in your hand is designed by me. I have a contribution in that.
Exactly.
So it was a dream I had, but it never happened. But now I'm seeing it happening for people who are, the new graduates and those who are with adequate experience to join the team. And now you are having an embedded team also that will actually add to the experience of getting a system on a chip and giving it as a new. So that's really amazing. It's you're offering a great opportunity for engineers and talents who really want to build something in this field. It's amazing.
Yeah,
But
well,
you are lucky that
yeah, of course, we are lucky. We are lucky, but it's. I think again, credit goes to the team of Goodix Egypt.
yeah,
All the team here have been doing a phenomenal job, and I thank them all for this.
that's amazing. So well, as we now we passed something, 1 hour 45 minutes, and it's, I guess that it's a never-ending discussion. There are lots of learnings, lots of reflections, and lots of history to tell. And it's just in a very abstract discussion about what's happening. So if you want to wrap up, this discussion, and maybe things, maybe I didn't ask you some questions that you would have loved to maybe or maybe something you want to share extra. So I'll just leave the floor for you to decide how we can close this interview, and maybe if we have something else to discuss further, we can have another interview afterwards. So
Yeah, so I think I've covered all the points. I jotted down some points here, but no, I think I covered all the things that I sort of wanted to talk about. But in wrapping this up, I mean, on a personal level, I was very fortunate to to go through the journey that I went through. If I was, I don't know what would have happened if I would stayed in Canada or the United States. I may have been part of a startup that changes, or changing a career or changing company every 2 or 3 years, or I could have been part of a conglomerate or a very big organization when I'm working on a very small slice of things. I like to believe that my journey here in Egypt has given me a much broader sense or expertise. I like to believe that I don't, I can't say for sure that this is true or not, but I like to believe that Si-Ware has been very interesting on a personal level, human level, managing people, bringing in talent, bringing the best out of talent, as well as on the business side, growing a company, convincing customers, and building a business, and talking to investors, and talking and marketing the company and marketing the team. So it's quite a diverse set of experiences, and talking to big players and small players, and traveling the world, really, that was very enriching. And then Goodix, as I said, being thrust in the market that we always hear about but never encounter. So everybody knows consumer is cutthroat. We never appreciated that until you sort of to get your feet into this market and see the dynamics and see how things are moving so quickly and trying to keep up with that. This was also a facet that was quite interesting for me. So the journey has been very enriching, and this would reflect on the industry here in Egypt. So in Egypt, there's a diverse set of expertise, and each company has its own sort of facet and its own sort of emphasis point on different business models, different areas, different areas of technical areas that they're working on, and different kinds of business model and different dynamics and so on. And all of this, I think, is enriching the industry in Egypt and giving diversity to the things that you can encounter in Egypt. So Egypt does have an interesting industry that is growing, and it deserves a careful consideration by all of those who are presented with the opportunity to pursue their careers elsewhere. Give this a thought. Staying here, pursuing a career here in a growing industry, this could also be very rewarding as well. And the same goes for expats, Egyptians who would contemplating coming back. I think the industry here presents very good opportunities. And as I said, growth is waiting to happen if we can fulfill the demand.
Wow. So that's really an amazing closure for today's interview. And really, I want to thank you, Dr. Amr, for sharing out your heart and sharing personal views. And it's a very inspiring journey. And here we have Amr Assam is saying, "What a very interesting and inspiring journey. Thanks a lot, Dr. Amr, for sharing. I'm really proud of being a tiny part of it." That's from Amr Assam.
Yeah, from a dear colleague, and thank you, Amr, for those words. And we are proud that you were part of that. Not a tiny part. You were an important part of that. So thank you for that.
So I want to thank you, Dr. Amr, and want to thank those the audience who are actually following up and those who commented and actually cared to be live with us today, and those who will watch this recording also. I believe it's always a great pleasure to have you, and I hope that we have more updates about Goodix and its growth in Egypt and worldwide in the consumer market, and more success stories to share. Actually, it's very inspiring for the talents, for the engineers, for other entrepreneurs who are really considering opening in the tech industry in Egypt, for talents who are considering to come back again and maybe join the forces to insource, the talents, instead of outsourcing and going outside and having an inflow instead of an outflow. I believe that it's very inspiring to have these talks and see how the ecosystem in Egypt is being evolved, and there are new opportunities for that were not present here in 20 years back, more than 20 years back. And thanks to you and those who actually contributed in building this up. And I want to thank you and thank the audience, and goodbye.
I would like to thank the audience and like to thank you, Muhammad, for this initiative. I think it's wonderful, and I am very much interested in listening to my colleagues as well to see their take on this industry as well. So thank you for this initiative and for doing this.
Yeah. Just to remind everyone, the next interview, it will be next Sunday. It will be 7 p.m. with Dr. Amr, Dr. Hisham Haddara, and it will be the journey from AnaCAD and EgyptCAD into what we were having now as Si-Ware as it is now, and and seeing the industry and its evolution. from Mentor Graphics to MEMSCAP, and I believe that Dr. Hisham is one of the godfathers of this industry in Egypt. So stay tuned with us. I will actually set the invitation with the event for everyone to enroll. And whenever you have any question about culture, about leadership, about teams, you're interested, you're welcome to actually talk to me directly and connect with me on my email and my website and here the LinkedIn page. And thank you for your follow-up, everyone, and have a great day. Okay, thank you, Dr. Amr.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.